All right, Rob, let's start here. A disappointing story. Alexander Mattison, who's a running back for the Minnesota Vikings, played last night in the game against the Eagles in the loss. African-American. Rob, he had a fumble. He ran for 28 yards on 8 carries and had a fumble in the first quarter. But he said, Rob, early this morning, that he received more than 60, and these are the words he used, disgustingly disrespectful messages through his Instagram account, including several that use the N-word and other slurs because of this loss last night to the Eagles. He posted them on Instagram. I didn't see them. I don't know if he's taking them down. Does anybody know? But I couldn't find what the actual messages were. But he did post them on Instagram. And he said, even beyond the racism, a few of them, the ones he posted, actually called for him to commit suicide.
Those are sick puppies. Those are some crazy people.
Right. And here's what he tweet or posted on Instagram. Y'all can come at me all you want about fantasy and you suck, blah, blah, blah. I really could or couldn't care less. But this ish is unacceptable. He says, you say and what you say and how it could truly affect someone. You need to reflect on that. Under my helmet, I am a human, a father, a son. This is sick. And his coach, Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings and the NFL, O'Connell spoke, the Vikings and the NFL released statements, obviously shooting down, being critical and supporting him and being critical of the messages that he sent, saying it has no place in the game and all that. Your thoughts, Rob, on this?
It happens. I mean, it's the lowest common denominator. That's what happens, Chris, when you give people an anonymous chance to go out and say and do whatever they want. This is what you get. And it's awful. We heard this stuff at Alabama, fans screaming, you're in a crowd, mob mentality, thinking that they'll never be able to point you out or say that you said it. You know what I mean?
Right.
You wouldn't say that to anybody one-on-one. You wouldn't. No. You wouldn't say it one-on-one, Chris. You talk about all the time. Like people who rip on you, but they see you. They never step to you in the street and say
Rob,
something to you.
we get like a lot of public figures, right. We, like all of them, really get criticized, right? Articles,
all the time,
tweets, whatever. I have never. Now maybe they don't come up to me, but we've been out. A lot of people come up to us. A lot of people come up to me.
When we went to Vegas, they stopped us like every other step,
and it's everywhere. And I have not once had somebody come up to me and insult me or be critical. It's all love. Can I get a picture? I love you. I watch y'all all the time. I listen to y'all. It's like, and I'm sure some of those people probably have been critical of us behind our backs. But in your face, it's all love.
Right. But this is the thing I just can't get over is, like, for people, we get it. He had a big fumble. We get it. He didn't have a great night. And
I don't think they scored. They didn't. I mean, that didn't cost them the game.
No, but it was a big fumble. But still, the point.
Not that would have made it, this called for. But yeah.
But it's just the point that really those are the lives you're living. Really telling somebody to commit suicide over a football game. Like, you need to take your kids to the park. Go to church on Sunday. Spend time with your family. It ain't the end of the world, Chris. I'm sorry. Like, it's a football game. I lost $600 last night. Was I on Twitter ripping on the players because they turned the ball over 4 times in the first half or whatever it was? Stop. It's not life or death.
I'm glad you went here. Because first of all, you're right. It's not life or death. But beyond that, what kind of person are you?
Right.
That over a freaking game, you would write somebody, you took the time out. I'm just going to keep it real. Your life is so kind of bad, weak, that you actually took the time out to send somebody a message telling them they should commit suicide because they fumbled in a football game? Really?
They're living a bad life, Chris. That's why I'm saying take your kids to the park, hug them, show them some love. This is some guy
person needs a hug, and those people, right?
But that's a person, Chris, who's going to go to a job, going to go to some job after. You know what I mean? This morning. Going to go to a job and work with other people.
Like it never happened.
Like it never happened. That's the scary part.
And then the racial stuff. I mean, obviously we know there's racism and people are racist and even people that act like they're not are sometimes.
And there are plenty of people who aren't.
I'm going to keep it real. Why are you watching football if you don't like black people?
Right.
I'm serious. Stop watching. Because 70% of the people you watching are black. Stop watching basketball too. Because 75% of those people are black. I mean, really. Why are you even watching?
Maybe it pains them to watch.
If you're going to be racist, go ahead and don't watch them.
Don't you remember that other incident in Boston, Chris, when a black player from the Washington Capitals scored the game-winning goal in overtime and they went racist all over social media? Disgraceful. I understand your team lost. I get that in the disappointment. But to go to that, the lowest common denominator, to be vile and racist, for what reason? How does that make you feel better? Just like the Alabama fans, Chris, when they got their butts handed to them by Texas. How disgraceful is that? Those are college kids. Those are kids in college, Chris, who are going to go work and hire and employ people down the road. Right. That's what's scary.
That's where it's the problem. Like
they're going to give the black people a loan, Chris.
Going to have
they're going to be a bank officer, right? They're going to give you a loan.
They're going to have a choice to hire somebody. You're right. To give somebody a loan, to give somebody a fair mortgage, percentage. I mean, like all that. And I would say this to Alexander Mattison. Don't let these clowns get you down, bro.
Definitely.
Real talk. Like, don't let them get you down. Rob, I mean, when I was a kid, I was called the N-word and went to teased.
Where?
First time I went to Cincinnati.
In Cincinnati, wow.
First time I went to a white school. I had been at a predominantly black school before that. Went to a white school, Catholic school. The older kids on the bus used to tease me and my brother. The kids in my grade were cool with me. But the older kids teased me, call us the N-word, talk about our hair. We had big afros, got in fights on the playground with the older kids. You know what? It did. I mean, of course, you don't want to have to deal with that. But it never bothered me as far as my self-esteem because I was raised to be proud to be black. I don't care what white people said about me. And I experienced it even at different stages too. It never bothered me one bit because I knew that this is how God created me. He created me in his own image. And I was very proud, raised by my father and mother, to be very proud to be black. I never for one day of my life felt inferior to white people. And that ain't a lie. I'm not trying to make no big statement. I couldn't care less what these little individual white people think about me. Because I know who I am and I know how I was raised and I'm proud of that.
You know what's crazy that you say that?
And a lot of black people, unfortunately, aren't. And y'all, we got to get over that. This little inferiority complex to white people. So Alexander Mattison, don't let it get you down, brother, at all.
And the flip to you and your situation in Cincinnati and elsewhere, growing up in New York, Chris, never, and I'm not lying, never had that word uttered to me, not once in my entire life. And I went to mixed schools. You know what I mean?
Yep.
In Queens, growing up, I have a lot of friends who are Jewish, who are, from Queens, who I went to school with. I'm friends with them to this very day. and not even in a joking way, not even in, you know what I mean? Like, I've never heard that word uttered to me. And I could imagine that, you know, as a kid growing up, you know, what that sounded like and how hurtful that was. But
it wasn't. I mean, I didn't.
No,
like,
I
you
just
don't
mean
like
it like
being
I mean
insulted.
like right.
I didn't. I probably called them something back.
Right.
We could go at it like that. That's my point. We got to raise our kids to be proud of who they are, so that somebody calling them a name can't rock their world. I'm not saying it's right. Alexander Mattison is right to share it, to publicize it, and to have these people taking the task to the degree that he can.
I agree.
But we
that.
can't be letting, because some white person called you a name, ruin your freaking day.
You had it. Hey, you didn't play that great. That's fine. That's football. You might play great the next game. That doesn't mean it's the end of the world, or they have a right to tear you down or to be racist in that vein. It is sick.
Who
though.
are they to be tearing somebody down?
But that kind of stuff.
Who are they? I mean, who are you to be insulting me? What makes you so good?
100%.
You ain't no better than me. I ain't saying we better than you, but you ain't no better than me.
Bingo.
So, Alexander Mattison, man, hopefully you don't let this thing bother you too much. I'm glad you put it out there. Hopefully something will be done, Chris, if it can. But don't let it bother you at all, man.
Let me say this. I would love to hear, and maybe I don't know if this is the right call for people to call in. I would like to hear from white listeners. I really would. Is this commonplace, Chris, behind closed doors with, you know, in, like, this is public because it's anonymous, right, you know what I mean? Right. But is this commonplace? As I'm just be honest, we're not asking you like as a reflection of you, but have you heard this? You know, like, is this commonplace to be rooting for a player? You know what I mean? Because he has your team uniform on, but as soon as something goes bad, they're the N-word. Is this commonplace or not? Like, why does this keep happening? It's got to be commonplace for a lot of people, Chris, because they can't help it when that moment comes.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think one thing that is commonplace, Rob, quickly before we go to the calls, and this goes way beyond sports, but, you know, I do think a lot of whites in America, you know, they acknowledge things are racist in America. Obviously not as bad as they used to be, but there's still racism. We get it. They see a George Floyd situation or even they'll look at this, Alexander Mattison, and say, that's wrong. That's unfortunate.
Right.
He shouldn't be, you know, he shouldn't have to deal with stuff like that.
He shouldn't be subjected to that nonsense.
But you know what I also think, and some people, it may even be subconsciously. Some is conscious and some is subconscious, in my view. I think some do feel like, but you know what? You lucky you over here in America. It ain't perfect for you. We know it's not quite as good for you as it is for white people, but you could be over there in Africa starving or something. I think that's a predominant feeling among some whites. And the owner was who was the owner the other day?
It was the owner of the Buffalo Bills,
who basically said the same thing, right?
Right. If you don't like it here, go back to Africa.
Right. You know, and so I think that feeling is like, yeah, we know it ain't perfect over here, but you could be over there starving. And I got news for you. Africa wasn't always like that until the whites went over there and used all the natural resources and oppressed the people. And give Nigeria 250 years of free labor and see how big they build up their economy. Because that's what America had in slavery and Jim Crow.